Gregory Patterson owned 17 apartment buildings across Providence, and for 12 years he had perfected the art of extracting maximum profit while providing minimum maintenance. Every month, rent checks arrived like clockwork from 47 families who called his properties home. But what those families did not know was that every dollar they paid went into Gregory Patterson's pocket while their ceilings leaked, their heat failed, their walls grew mold, and their children got sick from conditions that should have been criminal. Gregory Patterson had a simple business philosophy. Tenants complain, but they rarely leave. Repairs cost money, but threats cost nothing. And as long as the rent kept flowing, nothing else mattered. But here is what Gregory Patterson forgot. Housing codes exist for a reason. Building inspectors keep records, and when desperate tenants finally find courage to fight back, the evidence they bring can bury even the most arrogant landlord. And when Judge Caprio's courtroom doors opened to reveal the property owner himself standing as a defendant, every family who had shivered through winter without heat felt a surge of hope that maybe someone finally cared. What you are about to witness is not just a trial, it is the complete exposure of a man who built wealth on human suffering. The moment when Gregory Patterson realizes that his empire of exploitation is crumbling will be absolutely devastating. So if you have watched this far, do not miss the end. Like the video and dive into the story, because this confrontation between predatory greed and unwavering justice will leave you speechless. It is Wednesday morning, 9:30 a.m. sharp, at the Providence Municipal Court. The courtroom is filled with tenants from Patterson's properties, some holding photographs, others clutching medical records. Children sit quietly beside their parents, too young to understand the legal proceedings but old enough to remember the cold winters and the smell of mold. And there, at the defendant's table, sits Gregory Patterson in an expensive suit, his expression suggesting he views this as an inconvenient interruption to his real business. The bailiff's voice cuts through the murmur of the crowd. The state of Rhode Island versus Gregory Michael Patterson. Judge Caprio looks down from his bench with an expression that suggests he has already reviewed hundreds of pages of building inspection reports, and what he read disgusted him. Mr. Patterson, you stand accused of housing code violations, fraud, negligent endangerment, and operating substandard housing that poses serious health and safety risks to tenants. These charges involve 47 families across 17 properties. How do you respond, Stoll? Patterson stands with the casual arrogance of someone who has talked his way out of code violations for years. Your Honor, I appreciate the opportunity to address what I believe are exaggerated complaints from tenants who do not understand property management. When we examine the full context of maintaining older buildings in an expensive market, it will become clear that I have operated within reasonable standards. Judge Caprio's eyebrow raises. Reasonable standards? Mr. Patterson, the building inspection reports document over 300 code violations across your properties. That seems far beyond reasonable. Patterson's smile is condescending. Your Honor, I own older buildings in lower-income neighborhoods. These properties require constant maintenance, and I respond to legitimate repair requests promptly. What the prosecution is characterizing as negligence is actually the natural wear and tear of aging structures combined with tenant damage that I work diligently to address. Judge Caprio leans forward. Tenant damage, Mr. Patterson. The inspectors documented lead paint hazards, non-functional heating systems, black mold covering entire walls, exposed electrical wiring, and structural damage that posed collapse risks. Are you claiming your tenants caused all of that? For the first time, irritation flickers across Patterson's face. Your Honor, tenants in low-income housing often do not maintain properties properly. They cause damage and then complain when I cannot fix everything immediately. I do the best I can with the resources available. The resources available? Mr. Patterson, according to financial records, you collected over $2.8 million in rent from these properties over the past 3 years. Where exactly did that money go if not into maintaining safe housing? Patterson shifts his weight. Your Honour, property ownership involves numerous expenses, mortgages, property taxes, insurance, administrative costs. After covering essential expenses, maintenance budgets are limited. Limited maintenance budgets? Mr. Patterson, let me ask you directly. According to bank records, you purchased a vacation home in Florida for $1.2 million while your tenants were living without heat during winter. How do you justify that? Patterson's jaw tightens. Your Honour, my personal investments are separate from my business operations. I am entitled to use my profits as I see fit. Your profits, Mr. Patterson? Those profits came from rent paid by families who trusted you to provide safe housing. Instead, you bought yourself a beach house while children slept in apartments where they could see their breath indoors. Subscribe to Judge Stories if you believe landlords should provide safe housing before buying luxury vacation homes. Judge Caprio takes a deep breath. Mr. Patterson, let us review specific violations documented by building inspectors. At your property on Carpenter Street, inspectors found that the heating system had been non-functional for 3 consecutive winters. Tenants reported the problem repeatedly, yet you never repaired it. True or false? Patterson straightens his posture. Your Honour, heating repairs are expensive. I provided space heaters to tenants as a temporary solution while I explored cost-effective repair options. Space heaters, Mr. Patterson. You provided cheap space heaters to families with young children living in freezing apartments for 3 years. Do you know what happened to the Martinez family at that property? Patterson remains silent. The Martinez family has 3 children, under the age of 7. During the winter of 2022, all 3 children developed respiratory infections from sleeping in a freezing apartment. One child, 4-year-old Sophia, developed pneumonia and was hospitalized for 6 days. Do you remember the Martinez family? Patterson looks uncomfortable. I cannot remember every tenant, Your Honour. You cannot remember them because Mrs. Martinez remembers you very clearly. She remembers calling your office 18 times about the broken heat. She remembers your property manager telling her to wear warmer clothes. She remembers watching her daughter struggle to breathe while you ignored her pleas for help. Do you want to know how much the Martinez family paid you in rent during those 3 years without heat? Patterson does not respond. The Martinez family paid you $43,200 in rent over 3 years, and you could not spend a fraction of that to fix their heating system. Instead, you gave them space heaters that cost you approximately $200 total. Does that seem reasonable to you? Patterson's voice takes on a defensive edge. Your Honour, heating system replacements can cost tens of thousands of dollars. I was trying to find an affordable solution. An affordable solution? Mr. Patterson, while you were trying to find an affordable solution, you purchased a $75,000 Mercedes. Your priority was not finding affordable solutions. It was avoiding any expense that would cut into your profit margins. Judge Caprio picks up another document. Let us discuss another property. At your building on Hope Street, inspectors documented extensive black mold growth in 12 of the 16 units. According to tenant testimony, this mold had been present and growing for over 2 years. When tenants complained, what did you do? Patterson's face reddens. Your Honour, mold remediation requires specialized contractors and can be very expensive. I instructed tenants to clean visible mold with bleach while I researched proper remediation procedures. You instructed tenants to clean toxic mold with bleach. Mr. Patterson, black mold exposure causes serious health problems, especially in children. You know what happened to the children at Hope Street? Your Honour, I cannot be held responsible for every health issue tenants experience. Every health issue, Mr. Patterson? 7 children from that building were diagnosed with chronic respiratory problems directly linked to mold exposure. 2 families had to move out and abandon their security deposits because their children's doctors said the living conditions were making them sick. You kept their security deposits even though you forced them out with your negligence. How do you justify that? Patterson's voice rises. Tenants who break leases forfeit their deposits. That is standard practice. Standard practice? Mr. Patterson, you created uninhabitable conditions that forced families to flee for their children's health, and then you stole their security deposits. That is not standard practice. That is predatory exploitation. Judge Caprio opens yet another folder. Let us look at what happened at your property on Elmwood Avenue. Building inspectors found exposed electrical wiring, holes in the roof allowing water damage, and structural issues that posed collapse risks. The building was condemned, and all tenants were forced to evacuate with 24 hours' notice. Where did those families go? Patterson looks down. Tenants were responsible for finding their own accommodations. Their own accommodations? Mr. Patterson, you collected rent from those families right up until the day the building was condemned. Some families paid rent 2 weeks before being forced out. Did you refund their rent? Did you help them relocate? Did you take any responsibility for displacing them? Your Honor, the condemnation was not my fault. The building was old and deteriorated naturally. Deteriorated naturally, Mr. Patterson? The inspection report specifically states that all of the critical violations were due to deferred maintenance. The roof could have been repaired 3 years earlier for $12,000. You chose not to spend that money. Instead, you let water damage spread until the entire structure became unsafe. And when the building was condemned, you simply moved on to collecting rent from your other properties while those families scrambled to find housing. Judge Caprio's tone becomes severe. Mr. Patterson, I want to read you something. This is a letter from Linda Thompson, who rented a 2-bedroom apartment from you at the Elmwood property with her disabled daughter. She writes, "For 2 years, I begged Mr. Patterson to fix the leaking ceiling in my daughter's bedroom. Every time it rained, water poured in and soaked her bed. My daughter has cerebral palsy and cannot easily move to avoid the water. I called his office 47 times. I sent certified letters. I showed him pictures of the damage. He promised to fix it, and never did. My daughter developed a fungal skin infection from sleeping in damp bedding. When the building was condemned, we lost everything we could not carry out in 24 hours. Mr. Patterson kept our security deposit and never apologized." The courtroom sits in heavy silence. Patterson's face has gone pale. Judge Caprio continues, "Mr. Patterson, Linda Thompson paid you rent every single month for 2 years, while water dripped on her disabled daughter. You collected over $30,000 from her while her daughter developed health problems from the conditions you refused to fix. What do you have to say to her?" Patterson's voice is barely audible. "I had a lot of properties to manage, Your Honor. I could not personally oversee every repair." "You could not personally oversee every repair?" "Mr. Patterson, Linda Thompson called you 47 times. She sent certified letters. She documented everything. You ignored her because fixing her ceiling would have cost you money, and ignoring her was free." Judge Caprio picks up a bound transcript. "Mr. Patterson, let us listen to a voicemail that Mrs. Thompson left on your office line. This was recorded 6 months before the building was condemned." The courtroom falls silent as the audio recording begins. Mrs. Thompson's voice is strained and desperate. "Mr. Patterson, this is Linda Thompson from apartment 2B on Elmwood. I am calling again about the leak in my daughter's ceiling. It rained last night and water completely soaked her bed. She is disabled and she cannot sleep in a wet bed. I am begging you, please send someone to fix this. My daughter is getting sores on her skin from the dampness. Please, I'm paying my rent on time every month. I just need you to fix this one thing. Please call me back. The voicemail ends. No one in the courtroom moves. Judge Caprio's voice is quiet but firm. Mr. Patterson, did you ever call Mrs. Thompson back? Patterson looks at the floor. I do not specifically remember that voicemail, Your Honor. You do not remember because Mrs. Thompson remembers very clearly. She remembers calling every week for 6 months. She remembers waiting for a response that never came. She remembers watching her daughter suffer while you collected rent and did nothing. Judge Caprio leans forward. Mr. Patterson, I have reviewed financial records showing that during the same period Mrs. Thompson was begging you to fix a leaking ceiling. You spent $83,000 renovating your personal residence. You had money for granite countertops in your kitchen, but no money to stop water from dripping on a disabled child. Explain that to me. Patterson's composure finally cracks. Your Honor, you're making this sound worse than it was. I was running a business. Property management is complicated. I could not fix every single problem immediately. Every single problem? Mr. Patterson, we are not talking about cosmetic issues. We are talking about heat failures, toxic mold, structural collapse risks, and water leaking on disabled children. These were not minor inconveniences. They were serious health and safety hazards that you systematically ignored while living in luxury. Patterson's voice rises desperately. What about all the repairs I did make? What about the times I responded to complaints? You were only focusing on the negative. The repairs you did make? Mr. Patterson, according to tenant testimony and inspection records, you only made repairs when threatened with legal action or when inspectors forced you to comply. You never fixed problems voluntarily. You only acted when you absolutely had to. Judge Caprio picks up another document. Let us discuss your response when tenants complained. According to multiple testimonies, when tenants reported serious problems, you or your property manager would threaten them with eviction, rent increases, or loss of their security deposits. True or false? Patterson's hands clench. Tenants sometimes exaggerate problems to avoid paying rent. I had to protect my interests. Protect your interests, Mr. Patterson. We have recordings of your property manager telling tenants that if they continued to complain, they would be evicted for lease violations. We have emails from your office threatening to withhold security deposits from anyone who contacted building inspectors. You created a system of intimidation designed to silence desperate families who just wanted safe housing. Your Honor, I cannot control everything my property manager said. You cannot control your property manager. Mr. Patterson, we have emails where you explicitly instructed your manager to discourage tenant complaints by any means necessary. You wrote, and I quote, "Make it clear that tenants who are difficult will not have their leases renewed." Those are your words, not your manager's. Patterson's shoulders slump. Your Honor, I know this looks bad, but you have to understand the economic pressures of property ownership in this market. I was trying to stay profitable while dealing with difficult tenants who damaged properties and complained constantly. Difficult tenants? Mr. Patterson, these were families paying you rent and asking for basic habitability, heat in winter, roofs that do not leak, walls without toxic mold. Those are not unreasonable demands. They are legal requirements that you violated for profit. Judge Caprio takes a deep breath. Gregory Patterson, you came into this courtroom in your expensive suit, ready to characterize yourself as a responsible property owner dealing with unreasonable tenants. But every document, every inspection report, every testimony tells the truth. You are a slumlord who exploited vulnerable families for maximum profit while providing minimum care. Patterson's face crumbles. Your Honor, please, I can fix everything. I will make all the repairs. I will refund security deposits. Just give me the chance to make this right. Make this right? Mr. Patterson, children developed chronic health problems because of you. Families lost their homes because you refused to maintain basic safety standards. A disabled child slept in water-damaged bedding for 2 years while you renovated your mansion. You cannot make that right by suddenly promising to follow laws you have ignored for 12 years. Judge Caprio's voice becomes firm. For operating substandard housing that endangered 47 families, I am imposing a sentence of 2 years in county jail for fraud in collecting rent while providing uninhabitable conditions an additional 18 months, for negligent endangerment of children an additional 12 months. Your sentences will run consecutively for a total of 4.5 years in custody. The courtroom erupts in gasps and some quiet cheers from tenants. Patterson staggers backward. 4.5 years, Your Honour. I am a property owner, not a criminal. This will destroy my business. Your business? Mr. Patterson, your business was built on exploiting people who had no other options. That business deserves to be destroyed. Additionally, you are hereby ordered to pay restitution totaling $1.8 million to affected tenants for rent, refunds, security deposits, medical expenses, and relocation costs. All 17 of your properties are placed in receivership and will be managed by court-appointed trustees who will bring them up to code before any further rent is collected. You are permanently barred from owning or managing rental properties in Rhode Island, and upon your release, you will complete 500 hours of community service working with homeless shelters, where you will see firsthand the consequences of housing exploitation. Patterson's legs buckle. Your Honour, $1.8 million plus receivership. I will lose everything. I will be bankrupt. I have a family to support. Judge Caprio's response is measured but devastating. You have a family to support? Mr. Patterson, what about the 47 families who supported you with their rent while you let their children get sick? What about Linda Thompson trying to support her disabled daughter while water dripped on her bed? Your family will be fine. These families have been suffering for years while you accumulated wealth. Now you will experience what it feels like to lose everything, just like your tenants did. The bailiffs move forward. For the first time in 12 years, Gregory Patterson is no longer a powerful property owner. He is just another convicted criminal facing the consequences of his greed. As the handcuffs click around his wrists, the expensive suit that once signified success now looks like a costume worn by someone who profited from human misery. Judge Caprio delivers his final words. Gregory Patterson, you built your wealth on the suffering of families who had nowhere else to go. You collected rent from people living in dangerous conditions while you lived in luxury. You ignored the pleas of mothers whose children were getting sick. You threatened tenants who dared to ask for basic habitability. Today, you learned what every person in this courtroom already knows. Housing is not just property. It is shelter, safety, and dignity. When you exploit people's basic need for housing, you attack their fundamental humanity. And the law will not tolerate that, no matter how profitable it might be. Within hours, news of Patterson's conviction spreads throughout Providence. The court-appointed trustees begin immediate inspections of all 17 properties. Emergency repairs start within days. Heat is restored, mold is remediated, roofs are fixed. Families who had lived in fear and cold finally feel safe in their homes. Linda Thompson receives a check for her full security deposit plus restitution for medical expenses and suffering. The Martinez children can finally sleep in a warm apartment. The families from Elmwood Avenue receive compensation for their losses. Sometimes the most important lesson about housing comes from watching someone who treated homes as profit centers discover that tenants are human beings deserving of dignity and safety. Gregory Patterson walked into that courtroom believing his wealth and property ownership gave him the right to exploit vulnerable families. He walked out in handcuffs, headed to 4.5 years in jail, bankrupt and banned from ever managing housing again. where he will have plenty of time to reflect on the difference between being a landlord and being a slumlord. If you enjoyed this story and believe that landlords should face real consequences for exploiting tenants and endangering families, please like and subscribe to this channel. Check out the other stories where we examine what happens when justice finally catches up with those who built fortunes on human suffering. See you in the next video. Stay healthy.